Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militiaman and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good afternoon everybody, good evening, depending on where you are in the world, could be good night. But hey, listen, we had some really good information over the last few days. Sadly, I had a little bit of a little issue yesterday to take care of, and it just kept me away. But here I am today, and hopefully we'll do an update. Hopefully it won't be too long. I'll do as quick as I can because I had a lot of information for yesterday, but sometimes things happen. Hey, this article is fascinating in some degree because it's the first one of its kind. It's the first meeting of the Supreme Committee, and who was there? It was the Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani. Basically, what is it for? It's the government's taken an approach to implement the framework and the priority of economic, administrative, and financial reform included in its executive program. So by that, to me, is that it's a big deal. It's their first meeting, and what are they talking about? It's a priority. Economic, administrative, financial reforms are in this executive program. They're having a move forward with the reform adopted by the government. The government has been preparing a comprehensive reform program. We all know that. According to a future vision aimed at advancing the economic reality, building and reforming state institutions in various sectors. And we all know that they're digitizing all these entities in the institutions in the country. The Supreme Committee will follow up on the reform and hold the defaulters accountable in the implementation of the reform measures. So in other words, if you're hindering the system and not following through with what you're supposed to be doing and creating sort of a default, they're going to, I guess, have a consequence for you. Next one is that it's basically the article is it's time, an accepted step for the Sudanese towards the second state. It says that Sudani is now the biggest obstacle in the way of Maliki's return to the presidency. I have to laugh at that. I don't think Maliki's got a chance at this stage of the game. So the Sudanese government at this stage, I believe, from what I'm hearing on the ground even, the man's very well loved. He's doing a really good job. Ever since he took office, he's done nothing but achievements. So al-Sudani, I don't think he has anything to sweat. His achievements will be showing the citizens where he's going into the future. So good job on him. The Media Authority announces the launch on an integrated digital platform to reserve and pay fees for Iraq's domain names. What's interesting in this particular case is the platform for electronic reservations and payment for the international Iraq domain, com.iq or .net.iq, has been launched to companies in step to enhance and spread the name, indicating that the platform that will work will begin tomorrow. And that this was from yesterday, so I guess it must have started on the 1st of April. No, so it was Saturday, the way the dates worked. Sorry. But it's Monday they started. That's what we have. The platform, which uses the latest technologies in management and financial payment processes, will enable companies to carry out the process of selecting the names they wish to reserve, so everybody can be in sync with what names they want to use. And in addition to paying the financial costs assigned to it, in addition to controlling the DNS of the hosting to which the reserved domains will be linked. So ultimately, they're just gearing up to have everybody having proper addressing for internet access and website, so and payments. So it's good. Everybody's on the same page moving forward. The next thing is projects. Iraq's going to be doing a lot of projects, and this particular article says the Ministry of Planning concludes several contracts to implement 8 service projects within the plan of the Social Fund for Development. They go on to list numerous different sectors, but the bottom line is these service projects are getting underway, and it's a good sign because basically what they need to do is have the money to fund these projects. I mean, we're talking Kirkuk, we're talking mini villages, establishing water networks, health centers in different areas, a stadium, all kinds of different things. So that they're moving rapidly on getting those projects underway and to have the money to fund it. It says this particular one is about the Prime Minister. The wheel of the economy is turning and efforts of workers will not stop building infrastructure. He goes on to say, the wheel of the economy has been spinning and the efforts of workers have not stopped building infrastructure. So it sounds like that, everybody's just talking about that they're moving forward with projects, infrastructure. He adds that the principles of the commander of the faithful, peace be upon him, and the values which he spent his life as the same as those in the countries in every time and place, and draw the closest path and governance. We start with these principles in our government program and its main objectives in fighting corruption, eradicating poverty, unemployment, providing services, reforming the economy, and optimal investment of public money. Okay. All of the things that we're seeing, reforming the economy, providing services for the citizens, creating jobs, alleviating poverty, that's been their focus. And are they still hot and heavy on it? Yes, they're making inroads and having achievements with this. With this, it's really good. It's getting far better than it ever was before. These steps would not have been to proceed, and it has not been for the fact that our people and our legislative, executive, and judicial authorities have taken it in mind and in the interest of Iraq first. So they've been talking about the legislative, the executive, and judicial issues for years, and here they're talking about that they've made it a priority, and it's good, very good. Let's see. Iraq receives a Saudi invitation to participate in the World Economic Forum, so that's something that's going to come up at the latter part of this month. I don't think that we're waiting for that to happen. I think that Al Sudani's participation will have a good impact on the success of the meeting's work, of course. The World Economic Forum will be held in the city of Riyadh for a period of April 28th and 29th. So let's see if Sudani has what he has to say when he gets to Washington. He's still expected to be there on the 15th. I think that as they have told us, there would be a major announcement at some point in time. And so let's see what happens before he arrives. Would think that his expectations are high for him to have the reforms, because that's what they're going to be talking about. You're going to see more on that as we go through. Iraq is close to opening stations of 25 embassies for the issue of the unified card. I'm not going to go into depth with this, but this is probably also an add-on for people that are outside the country. For instance, they want to populate the citizens inside the country, because people probably have the opportunity, I'm fairly sure I'm right on that, have had the opportunity to come home and get their personal effects in order, their IDs, if you will, their national card. But those that are not and they're overseas, they will be being issued unified cards too, just maybe not at the same time. My view is most likely, if there was a real effective exchange rate applied, I think a lot of people would be flying home that don't have them to get that. We'll see. It might not have anything to do with it, but anyway. Look, there's been over 36 million Iraqis that have attained their cards. Basically, 36 million people is, about 85% of the population, and a large portion of their population is very young that may not have a card. So I would believe that if someone told me that the saturation is by far more than enough for them to move forward, I would say that I wouldn't argue with them, because again, what do they have? 5-6 kids per family on average in Iraq? That's less than 18 years of age. So they got probably a saturation that's quite large. Okay, so moving to the next one is the Customs Authority announces the implementation of the ICE-CUTA system in 4 centers, including Baghdad Airport, and explains its features. All they're saying here is that ICE-CUTA system is becoming more and more prevalent throughout the country. It's going to be ready to go for international trade, and they're not stopping doing it. They're basically looking for many little things. I'll get to a couple of pieces. It says there's obviously success in those 4 centers. The system was implemented in 3 other customs centers for a period that lasted for over 5 months. where they saw the extent of the system's success in addressing violations, controlling the procedures carried out by the authorities, employees, and auditors. Auditors, they mentioned. So they've been on top of this. I think that the auditors, you're going to find that have been noted, 13 largest auditors in the world are being tapped into, if you will. It says the Welcome Square is the most important center in the country. It's the one with the most merchandise entry and the most revenue. This was done after the completion of the infrastructure of modern computers and a system and the internet, like we just mentioned about the internet. And here they're reiterating that. So they have that internet system, the .iq and the iq.org, whatever that was. Anyway, come read the article. We'll see it. You'll see what I was talking about. It says we began implementing the system experimentally on February 28th, and March 3rd we announced the start of its implementation in the system and system being normal. They go on to say that the difficulties were overcome, so they might have had some testing that was rough, and the implementation of the system moved forward as those involved, including importers and exporter agents from maritime agencies and transport companies, they all responded. And how did they respond? Well, that particular time frame, that week that they mentioned, there was 10,000 containers that they brought in. So the system is up and running and working. Today, it says Iraq is joined with these countries, unifying the procedures of the Customs Authority in all its border crossings and ports, while unifying the methods of collecting fees, providing precise and accurate data, like we've always talked about. And they say that the entire Iraqi state about the volume of imports and the amount of trade exchange between them in Iraq and other countries is obviously strong and unified. It goes, it also provides the data to the decision maker regarding economic planning, import and export, control of currency movement, the exchange of the dollar between Iraq and other countries. So obviously this system is tracking money. It's watching where the currency is going to whom, to where, from, all of that. And is it accurate? Does that amount of money equate to the volume and or the pricing of the goods and services that they have? That's where the system's going to work. It goes on and says the system will help the Customs Authority in tightening control over prevention and restriction issues, as we will be controlled to prevent the entry of materials that are prohibited from import, such as drugs and weapons, currency molds. I find that very interesting. It seems to me that they don't use molds for printing notes. They use printing presses. What do they use molds for? Currency molds, that's coinage. What do we expect to happen in the future? I think that when they raise the value of their currency to a previous era, they're going to need, or even as Al Sudani said, if you get to 0.76 cents to the dollar, obviously you're going to need small category notes and yeah, probably currency molds for what? Coinage. We'll see. The General Authority of Customs seeks to implement this system in all customs centers. So they're not stopping. They're flat out just going to keep going until they get the whole country up and running. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow, the next day, or if it's going to be still 6 to 8 weeks to 2 months. We don't know. But ultimately, when they have the international airport, the biggest ports in all of the biggest ports so far, from what it sounds like, I'm not so sure that the little ports are that big of a concern, but they will be. Obviously, they want the money, so it's great. It says that the next stage will include implementing the system in Safwan Center, which is the crossing linking Iraq to Kuwait, where the automation system will be adopted. It's pointing out that the network connectivity has been implemented in the Trouble port on the Jordanian border, the Al Shaib port in Maysan, and the Iranian border, and the Shalameke port as well. All of it's underway. He basically states that the Escuda team will be ready when the authority works in any customs center after training the customs authority's employees at high-level international experts, working with the United Nations team that is implementing the system and managing the project. Basically, as far as I can say, that these guys have been hitting it out of the park with the Escuda system. And if you go back to even back in October, at least, right, October 4th, 2023, there's an article in our room talking about the same things, But what are they talking about also? That the latest technologies that this ICE system is using to improve customs controls and facilitate trade, they're using artificial intelligence and blockchain. That's the blockchain aspect should have everybody's interest. Artificial intelligence always makes me kind of wary. Blockchain, I think it's just accurate information. You can't lie. So, corruption, it sounds to me like it's geared for, definitely geared for fighting corruption. And who's involved with that? The new system is called #USCUDA-World. UNCTAD's, the largest technical assistance program, etc. So very good information, powerful stuff, because all that money, those revenue streams, Iraq's totally going from, they have huge amounts of oil, obviously, they have huge amounts of natural resources. So Iraq's going to tap into those non-oil resources. And we know that from, they're even going to be doing tourism. We have something on that in brief too. So I'm going to move forward because what else do we have? We have the Chinese, the Singapore, Emirati companies are all competing to operate the Grand Port of Fao. So where's the ICE system going to be? It's going to be down there. The most prominent contenders for managing and operating the port are Chinese, Singaporean, and Emirati companies that have great success and experience in major ports on the continent of Asia. So what are they doing? The giant companies that operate within these international standards are very important to the Ministry for Iraq to be able to move forward, especially in this first phase of operating these projects, and especially as it's prepared to receive reputable international companies. So Iraq's ready to go. He says that the Ports Administration is working as one team with the Ministry of Transport to achieve the highest levels in implementing port projects that have reached advanced completion rates, whether in the work of 5 berths at the highway linking the port and the submerged tunnel in the city of Qasr, or in container handling stations, or in the canal. And realize the dry canal is the development road project. So basically, what are they doing? There's no stop from going international as far as this is. Well, they're laying out, the ICE system is becoming more and more operation throughout the country. And obviously they talk about the Port of Fao, Qasr, Baghdad International Airport. So they're opening up. As far as I can tell, that's what I see. Implementing the oil law will solve problems between the region and the center. This is another article that the Undersecretary of the Ministry of Oil and Liquidation Affairs, Al-Zubayr, pledged at the end of the Kurdistan oil export crisis to Turkey to passage of the oil and gas law. So we know that that's one of the things that I think it's definitely exchange rate oriented. And so they're waiting for that to happen, but they're basically stating that implementing the provisions of the oil and gas law will solve the problems between the center and the region. So what are they doing? They're gearing for the 6th licensing round that will be announced shortly, and they do not restrict the budget, are paid, they will not restrict the budget and are paid from the exported oil. Okay, so they have a reasoning why they're going to be able to do the things that they do, is because there's going to be excess revenue stream to pay for it. Oil remain in existence, and there's no energy that competes with it. Basically, they're reiterating what people should know is that oil is very efficient, and that there's no energy that competes with oil at this time in terms of flexibility and use. And Iraq continues to rely on funding its budget without any risk. So they're basically stating that they're going to keep moving forward, and there's very little to no risk at this stage. Finance Committee expects the budget amendments to arrive after Eid. There's numerous articles out that talk about this lately, and I'm fairly sure that, well, they have some language in one of these articles tonight that basically state that the HOR does not have the budget schedules or texts yet, so they don't know if there's a deficit or not. So they're very conflicting. There's 3 or 4 articles out today as opposed to yesterday. But anyway, it says here that in this committee expects the budget amendments to arrive after Eid. I think Eid was moved to the 10th from Al-Sistani, the Grand Ayatollah, and therefore if it runs 2 days, that 2-day time period would be to the 12th, which turns out to be a holy day before they go to a weekend. Just an FYI. What does it say here? The amendments made by the government regarding the budget schedule have ended and will be submitted to Parliament after Eid al-Fitr, noting that the value of the budget was raised from 199 trillion to 288 trillion, which made the deficit large, but the budget will not be spent in full. Well, as far as they're concerned, as far as the HOR is concerned, when they say the deficit is large, I'm not sure how they know that, but because they haven't got it yet. Anyway, Eid al-Fitr, it says is on April 9th when you Google search that, but al-Sudani says it moved it to the 10th. And so in this particular article says that April 9th, 2024, that's when it'll be celebrated and will continue until the 11th. So by that logic is where I get the 10th, al-Sistani saying the 10th, and if they say it will run for 2 days effectively, that's where I came up with the 12th. If that's what happens, I think al-Sistani is the one that put it on him, you guys. It says, I think here's an article I believe is what is going to support what I just got through saying. It says, failure to send the budget schedules to Parliament is the government violation. This Finance Committee representative is talking about the budget schedules. It says, what is being talked about in the media is inaccurate, and we do not know the size of revenues and exports, so we don't know the size of the budget deficit. Noting that not sending the budget to to Parliament is a government violation. We expect the budget to arrive after Eid al-Fitr. So there you go, you guys. I told you I had some data that was going to be supportive of that, and sure enough, there it is. And that name is Sanad. Failure to send budget schedules to Parliament is a government violation. That's the name of it. So you can come into Patreon, and you can come into our Discord chat room, and you can find all this stuff. Patreon is what? www.patreon.com/MM and crew, and see you there. By the way, getting into Militiaman's chat room, that's the name. So when you do everything properly and you join as a member, if you choose to, remember, use a web browser to get into Patreon, and you'll find the proper easy link to connect to Discord, and you can come join the Militiaman's chat room, okay? And we're happy to see you guys there. Don't forget, Gigi is one, and her and Greg, they help everybody come in. And of course, Super Samson loads information, usually while most of us in the United States are sleeping, and you have news to wake up to every morning and enjoy the coffee. And don't forget, Pompey Peter and Petra and a few others, crew members, wonderful audios today, or audio from Pompey Peter, some explanations, extra add-ons that you can get, and today there are some, so come in and check it out. Travel Companies Association signs a contract that enhances electronic payments and financial operations for companies, and here we go. Remember I talked about non-oil revenue streams? The Association of Travel and Tourism Companies in Iraq announced Monday the signing of a contract that enhances electronic payments and financial operations for the companies who's involved. Smart Card Company, KeyCard, for what? Electronic payment in order to enhance the use of electronic payments in Iraq and facilitate what? Financial operations of travel and tourism companies in Iraq. And they go on to, you can buy hotel tickets, reservations, tourism programs, everything. They're basically promoting their archaeological and religious tourism. What's wrong with that? Iraq's got an ancient history. the city of Ur. I think the United States gave back 30,000 artifacts this last 2023. I'm pretty sure of it. So hey, good stuff. We'll go into to speed things up, but what do we have? We have the Ministry of Finance and the World Bank are discussing support for the Economic and Financial Reform Program. Why would the World Bank be doing that? They would be doing that because they're focused in on accelerating things. They want Iraq to get stuff done. What are they doing? It says the regional director for the Middle East at the World Bank, Jean-Christophe Kerr, geez, I'm terrible with names, you guys, but support for the economic and financial reform programs. It says during the meeting, priorities for development projects and ways to support the World Bank to strengthen the financial and business sectors and improve the investment environment were discussed, and emphasis was placed on continuing bilateral coordination to promote sustainable development, in addition to discussing the bank's support for the government's program. Part of the program, I think, is the project to delete the zeros. The ministry's efforts and plans towards accelerating the pace of financial banking reforms in line with the government's vision aimed at consolidating the foundations of the national economy, creating economic balance, and correcting the course of financial policies in Iraq. The continuation and series of the fruitful cooperation, Iraqi's government related to providing the necessary support in terms of expertise in development projects and reforms related to financial and business sectors. Obviously, what are they saying? Basically, the amount of support that Iraq is getting from the international realm, the World Bank, they're all working together bilaterally with coordination to promote what? Sustainable development. So yeah, there's a lot of big stuff. There's 2 articles specifically on that in our room, but that's the most important one, and that's obviously today. The last couple more. Iraqi economy faces the United States closes oil revenue account. This article is somewhat lengthy. It's about 3 or 4 pages that I put together. I think it's really important that we go over some of this, and I'll try to do it as quick as I can. It says that the United States has closed the account through which the Iraq collects revenue from its oil sales. This revelation came to light through a letter addressed to the Finance Committee of the Iraqi Parliament dated March 18th. That's about 2 days before Fuad Hussein, forgive me, came to America to deal with finance, banking, all kinds of things, security, strategic framework, all that stuff. But here again, this account was basically, the DFI fund was closed, I believe, on March 18th. And we'll find out through this article. It says, Amar Khalaf, Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, outlines the closure of the account known as the Development Fund for Iraq, which has been operational since 2003. Pretty big change. We haven't seen this before. So is it a smoking gun? I'm not so sure, but I'm not terribly unsure, because obviously if they were going to stop an account that had protections for all their oil money, and they just now relinquished it a couple of weeks ago, I think that's pretty big. It says that, what did it do? It says under the DFI supervision and protection of the United Nations, the United States, it served as a crucial mechanism for Iraq to collect and manage its oil revenues. It says the letter maintains this account with the Federal Reserve Bank, the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank, allowing it to receive oil revenues in dollars and utilize them to cover essential expenses in accordance with agreements with the United States. And so now this DFI fund account, since it's closed, Iraq's oil revenue is now being directed to a new account referred to as Iraq 2. And they go on to say that the protection previously afforded to Iraq's revenues may no longer be guaranteed. Because of why? Because Iraq had significant amount of debt. And that was one of the protections they had. So they must have felt comfortable in a sense that they could handle, if any, recourse on that debt. Maybe they have enough money. I'll tell you this, if they change the value from 1310 to a previous era, it'll become a lot cheaper to pay off their debts. It'll become a lot cheaper in dinar terms. By the way, KPMG audit, here it says, KPMG is one of the largest auditing firms in the world. It says United Nations Resolution 1483 transferred the authority to authorize expenditures from Iraq's oil revenues from the United Nations to the Coalition Provisional Authority. It also created an international body to monitor the coalition's expenditures from Iraq's oil revenues, called the IAMB. So that's fascinating. Another little tidbit here, it says the document states that the legal basis for depositing oil revenues in the Iraq 2 account with the Federal Reserve Bank in New York is the expiration of the extension of executive order issued by the U.S. President 13-303, which was in 2003, which granted immunity to Iraq funds deposited in the DFI account. So I'm pretty sure that if that's been discontinued, and that extension hasn't been granted, those funds sound to me like they would be obviously at risk, or is something else happening? I do have a bit and piece that's down here that I'll get to towards the end. Bear with me. He stresses that this mechanism ensures the funds are not exposed to creditor claims, as they are funds belonging to Iraq's government derived from the export of oil. So that was back then. At this stage, that may not be the case. Here we go. It says that a high-level delegation back in 3/21/2024, Foreign Minister Fawad Hussein arrived in Washington, D.C. So there you have it. That was on the 20th. I told you that they discounted this, discontinued this on March 18th. That article says high-level delegation arrived 3/20/2024. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So they released the money. He showed, or released the fund, an account, and he shows up. He says here that we had a frank meeting with the U.S. Treasury, and this was on the 26th so after the fact, right? On the 26th, it says the U.S. Treasury, they had a frank meeting with the U.S. Treasury, and they're not talking about sanctions on Iraqi banks. I guess those banks, those 14 to 25 banks, they weren't going to talk about it, but they were talking about more measures in reforming the banking system, which we kind of talked about. The World Bank was wanting to accelerate the banking and financial circumstances. So anyway, before the arrival of Iraq's prime minister, there will be various committees to discuss energy issues, which include oil, gas, electricity, committees on financial and banking issues, committees on how to provide services in the field of transportation, and a committee in the field of higher education as well as health. So then a couple days later, on the 30th, it says that the conclusions of this letter, representatives demanded not to allow further transfers in U.S. dollars to Iraq. And the U.S. Treasury Department confirms that such transfers do not benefit the Iranian regime or its agents. So that sentence right there is pretty powerful, because it says not to allow further transfers in U.S. dollars. And we've seen that they have had very small amounts of dollar transactions from the central bank. I think a couple days ago it was 6 million and 4 million in cash. So that's really, really pretty low. But the platform itself is doing what they're supposed to be doing, is doing imports and export trade, and finances are done through the platform in a legal manner. Therefore, by rights, that cash portion would subside. Here it says that they also talked about Fawad Hussein is talking about security and military partnership with Iraq. And also in this conversation that they did a little bit of a retreat from the demand for immediate withdrawal of United States forces. So as they have stated to us, what they say in writing sometimes, obviously a lot of times, that what happens behind closed doors is completely different. But here in this development fund for Iraq, you guys can Google it. It's really simple. It is United Nations Security Council Resolution 1483, dated 21 May 2003. One of the things, if you go all the way to the bottom, you're going to find that they talk about International Advisory Monitoring Board. And then I already told you about the IAMB. It has a responsibility to approve the independent public accountants, like I mentioned, KPMG, right? Selected and appointed by the CPA. CPAs are, well, KPMG is something like that. CPA to audit the DFI as required by the UNSCR 1483. And in the regards to this IAMB, will perform functions similar to those of external audit committees for the CPA. The IAMB website is XYZ. You guys can look that up. But I want to get to the bottom. It says disbursements. To date, disbursements from the DFI have been in support of what? Wheat purchase program, currency exchange program, electricity and oil infrastructure programs, equipment for Iraq's security forces, and for Iraqi civil services, salaries, and ministry budget operations. That's pretty big. And so now you have an idea where they got the money to do what they've done all along. It's come from their oil money. It's not coming directly from their Dinar payments for 1310, in my opinion, and therefore we can get that out of our heads. So And lastly, okay, the 2024 budget schedules per Mahar Mohammed Saleh, the Prime Minister's advisor, he's confirming that the financial tables for the 2024 budget are being prepared in accordance with the legislation of the 3 financial budgets, which is what? The tripartite budget. It says the proposed financial schedules being prepared for the executive authority today, and this is today on the 2nd, are based on the financial legislation in force and approved in accordance with the aforementioned tripartite budget law. He states that presenting the financial tables for the fiscal year 2024, obtain parliamentary approval for these tables, which include public revenues and expenditures, undoubtedly embodies a legislative path that we see in all cases are more flexible in the legislative process because the financial principles and constants have become an integral part of the Federal General Budget Law 13 of 2023, which is the tripartite budget, and which this law was originally legislated by the House of Representatives by the vote of legislative authority and published in the Official Gazette last year. There you have it. They basically are telling us that it's going to be by the book, but they're probably just not telling us how that's going to play out and accurately when. But they did say from Tafe Sammy's office, if I recall, this week would be the week. But then we heard the Parliamentary Finance Committee discount that and say it's going to be different. So anyway, that's the best that I got for you. I hope you all enjoyed it because I did enjoy getting it together. And sorry for being a little bit long on the content, but hey, it's a lot of work and it just takes a little time to convey. But I hope everybody liked it. And if you'd like to have more of that content, hit that like, subscribe button, if you would please. And also, put this work together. Those donations that you guys are kindly offer out through PayPal, Zelle, and Venmo really do help keep everybody able to help you, help us. So thank you so much. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content, subscribe to the channel, or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much and have a great day.